You won't believe what happened on the day of my sister's wedding. Everything seemed perfect at first. The music, the laughter, the decorations, but within hours, one shocking secret turned the happiest day of our lives into a storm of betrayal and disbelief. Before I continue, please make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of these incredible real-life stories. Now, let me take you step by step into the most unforgettable wedding story I have ever lived through. My name is Aisha, and I am 24 years old. I have always been the quieter one in the family, the observer who notices details others overlook. My sister's name is Miriam. She is 22, beautiful, confident, and adored by everyone in our family. From childhood, Miriam had been the one who dreamed of a fairy tale wedding, and as her big day approached, she spared no effort in making it perfect. Our family belongs to a small but close-knit community where weddings are not just ceremonies, they are festivals, a celebration of family honor and tradition. Relatives traveled from faraway cities to attend. The house was filled with chatter, the smell of food, and colorful decorations that sparkled everywhere. At first glance, it looked like a dream come true. Miriam's fiancé, Imran, came from a respected family, and everyone admired his polite nature. He seemed devoted to her. People would often say how lucky Miriam was to have found such a good man. But I knew something Miriam didn't, and that secret, if revealed, could destroy everything in an instant. I had discovered the truth accidentally, weeks before the wedding. One evening, while helping Miriam choose her bridal jewelry, I noticed messages on her phone from an unknown number. At first, I ignored them, assuming it was just one of her friends. But later that night, I saw a message appear again. Does he know yet? Are you going to tell him, or should I? Those words froze me. They didn't make sense at first, but my instincts told me something was terribly wrong. Miriam quickly deleted the message, pretending it was nothing. When I asked, she just laughed nervously and said, "Oh, it's just a prank from a cousin." But I didn't believe her. As the days moved closer to the wedding, I noticed Miriam becoming restless. She smiled in front of everyone, but at night, she would sit alone, staring at the stars as if a heavy burden weighed on her. On the night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I walked into the kitchen to get some water and heard Miriam whispering on the phone. Her voice trembled as she said, "Please, don't come tomorrow. Don't ruin everything. I promise I'll handle it after the wedding." I froze in the dark hallway, my heart pounding. Who was she begging? What was she hiding? The next morning, the house was alive with celebration. Drums played, relatives danced, children ran around in excitement. Miriam looked breathtaking in her red bridal dress. Guests kept saying she looked like a queen, but behind her smile, I saw fear in her eyes. As the ceremony began, my mind kept racing. I tried to convince myself it was just wedding nerves, but deep down, I knew something was coming. And then it happened. Just as the groom's family arrived and everyone gathered to welcome them, a man walked into the courtyard. He wasn't dressed for a wedding, but the moment Miriam saw him, her face turned pale. The man locked eyes with her, and the joy of the celebration faded into silence. The guests began whispering, "Who is he? Why is he here?" I felt my heart sink as Miriam clutched my hand so tightly her nails dug into my skin. "Please," she whispered to me, her voice trembling, "don't let him say anything." That was the moment I realized this man held the secret Miriam had been hiding. The man stepped forward, his face full of anger. "So this is the wedding," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Does he know the truth, Miriam? Or are you going to let him marry you without telling him who you really are?" Gasps filled the courtyard. My mother dropped the tray of sweets she was holding. The groom's family exchanged shocked glances. Miriam's lips quivered. She tried to speak, but no words came out. The man's presence was like a storm that had swept away all the happiness of the day. I wanted to step forward, to defend my sister, but I didn't even know what the truth was. Was she hiding a past relationship? Was she in love with this man? Or was there something even darker? Imran, the groom, stood frozen. His eyes darted between Miriam and the stranger. "What is he talking about?" he demanded. Miriam's silence only made things worse. The man raised his voice again. "She promised me this wouldn't happen. She swore she wouldn't betray me. But here she is, dressed as a bride, pretending this marriage is real." The crowd erupted into murmurs. Relatives whispered, some already accusing Miriam of betrayal, others urging patience. My father shouted, "Enough. This is our daughter's wedding, and no one will ruin it." But deep down, even he looked shaken. Miriam finally spoke, her voice breaking. Please, not here, not now. Those words confirmed to everyone that something was indeed hidden. And that was when I realized this was only the beginning. What secret was Miriam hiding? Who was this man, and what connection did he have to her? Was the wedding going to collapse before our eyes, or would she reveal a truth that could destroy our family's honor forever? The answers were about to unfold in ways none of us could have imagined. The wedding hall was filled with laughter, the kind of laughter that hides tension beneath the surface. I sat at the corner table, watching the guests dance and clap. My sister, Aisha, looked radiant in her bridal dress. She was only 23, her face glowing under the golden lights, while I, being 2 years older, couldn't help but feel both proud and nervous. Everything looked perfect from the outside, yet deep inside, I knew a storm was coming. Earlier in the day, I had overheard something that made my heart sink. One of my cousins whispered that the groom's family had started demanding more money, almost threatening to stop the ceremony if the demand wasn't met. At first, I thought it was just a rumor, but the look on my father's face told me it was true. His hands were trembling as he signed a paper quietly with one of the groom's uncles. I had no idea what was written, but I could sense desperation in his eyes. I wanted to rush to Aisha and warn her, but how could I? She was smiling, surrounded by friends, unaware of the dark negotiation happening in the next room. My chest tightened as I debated whether to break her happiness with the truth or stay silent. The ceremony moved forward, yet every step felt heavy. When the groom, Salman, entered the hall, there was thunderous applause, but I noticed sweat dripping down his forehead. He wasn't just nervous. There was something else, something he was hiding. My instinct screamed that danger was closer than anyone realized. As the rituals began, I kept glancing at my father. He looked pale, avoiding everyone's eyes. My mother's smile was forced, her lips trembling as she tried to entertain the guests. Suddenly, I saw Salman's brother whispering something into his ear, and the groom's face hardened. I couldn't hear the words, but the tension was undeniable. Then it happened. Right in the middle of the ceremony, Salman dropped the glass of water in his hand. The sharp sound silenced the crowd. His eyes darted from side to side, his breathing quickened, and suddenly, he shouted, "Stop everything!" The hall froze. Gasps filled the air. Aisha's face turned pale, and she looked at me with wide, fearful eyes. My heart raced, pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. Salman's voice shook as he announced, "This marriage cannot continue until my demands are fulfilled. My family has been insulted, and I will not proceed unless I get what I deserve." The silence turned into chaos. Guests began murmuring, some covering their mouths in shock, others rushing to the doors. Aisha's veil slipped slightly as her body trembled. Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt a burning anger rise within me. How dare he humiliate my sister in front of everyone? My father stood up, his voice weak but determined. "Salman, this is not the time. We agreed on everything already. Why are you doing this now?" But Salman sneered. "Agreed? That was just the beginning. If you want this wedding to continue, you must transfer half of your property into my name today." The audacity of his words sent shivers across the hall. People whispered, "Did we hear that right?" My fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my skin. This wasn't just greed. It was betrayal on the biggest day of my sister's life. Aisha broke down in tears, her hands covering her face. My mother tried to console her, but the damage was already done. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and stood in front of everyone. My voice shook at first, but then it grew stronger. "Enough, Salman. You may have fooled us until now, but today you have exposed your true self. This marriage will not happen at the cost of my family's dignity." The guests gasped again. Some clapped in agreement, others looked terrified of the confrontation. Salman's face turned red, and he stepped toward me aggressively. "Who are you to stop this? Stay out of this matter." But I didn't move. I met his gaze head-on, my heart beating like a drum. "I am her sister, and I will never let her life be destroyed by a man like you." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, suddenly, Salman's mother stood up and shouted, "How dare you insult my son? You should be grateful he agreed to marry into your family at all." That was the breaking point. My father collapsed into his chair, unable to bear the humiliation. My mother's tears fell uncontrollably. The hall buzzed with whispers, relatives debating whether to support us or the groom's side. In the midst of the chaos, Aisha finally spoke. Her voice was weak but steady. "If this is how you treat me on the day of our wedding, what will you do after marriage? I cannot marry you, Salman." Her words struck like lightning. Everyone froze, unable to believe the bride herself had rejected the groom in front of hundreds of people. Salman's arrogance cracked, and he tried to grab her arm, but I stepped forward and blocked him. "Touch her and you'll regret it." Before the situation could escalate further, an older uncle of ours rushed to the stage. He grabbed the microphone and said firmly, "The wedding is cancelled. Everyone, please remain calm." The groom's family erupted in anger, shouting and throwing accusations. Some guests left in a hurry, others stayed to witness the drama unfold. My chest heaved with both fear and relief. Aisha collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. But just when we thought it was over, another revelation shook us all. One of the groom's own cousins, perhaps tired of their games, stood up and shouted, "Salman never wanted this marriage. He was forced into it by his parents. He already has someone else in his life." The crowd gasped louder than ever. My eyes widened in disbelief, and Aisha's tears stopped midstream. Salman's face turned ghostly pale. He tried to silence his cousin, but it was too late. The truth had spilled out, like fire consuming everything in its path. Guests began shouting shame, disgrace. Some even threw their napkins at the groom's family in disgust. The atmosphere turned toxic, and within minutes, Salman and his family stormed out of the hall, leaving behind chaos, broken decorations, and a shattered bride. I held Aisha tightly as she whispered, "Why me? Why today?" I stroked her hair and whispered back, "Because you were saved, Aisha. Saved from a lifetime of misery. You may not see it now, but this is a blessing in disguise." But even as I said those words, deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The disgrace wouldn't fade overnight. Relatives would gossip, neighbors would judge, and my father's reputation would be questioned. The battle ahead would be harder than anything we had faced so far. That night, as we packed the decorations away in silence, I looked at my sister's pale face. She had aged years in just a few hours, and I silently swore to myself I would uncover every secret, expose every lie, and make sure my sister's pain wasn't wasted. Because sometimes, betrayal at a wedding isn't the end. It's only the start of a war that shakes the foundation of family honor. The night after the wedding disaster was the longest of our lives. The lights of the hall had gone out, but the whispers of humiliation still echoed in my ears. My sister Aisha sat silently in her room, her bridal dress half torn, makeup smudged, and her hands trembling. I sat beside her, unable to sleep, unable to comfort her enough. Our father had locked himself away in his study. The sound of glasses clinking told me he was drinking again, something he had given up years ago. My mother sat in the living room, staring blankly at the wall, her eyes swollen from crying. It felt as though one greedy man and his family had managed to destroy every corner of our home in a single night. But I couldn't let it end like this. I knew Salman's betrayal was deeper than just property demands. The words of his cousin haunted me. He already has someone else in his life. If that was true, then not only had he tried to cheat us financially, but he had also tried to build his new life on the ashes of my sister's. The next morning, I made up my mind. I told Aisha, "I need to know the full truth. Stay strong for me, because I'm going to bring everything out into the light." She nodded weakly, her eyes empty, but I saw a flicker of hope. I started by visiting one of my college friends, who worked at the local registry office. With her help, I searched Salman's records. What I found shook me to my core. He had already registered a nikah with another woman 2 years ago. Her name was Zara. The documents were real, signed, stamped, and official. My hands shook as I took pictures of the file. This wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud, deception, and a trap. He had married Zara, but still pursued Aisha to grab money and property. The audacity made my blood boil. I rushed home and showed the documents to my parents. My father nearly fell off his chair, gripping the papers with trembling hands. My mother gasped, covering her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. And Aisha, she broke down completely. She cried until her body gave up, fainting into my arms. When she woke up, her voice was hollow but steady. "Expose him. Don't let him destroy anyone else's life. Promise me." I promised. That evening, we called a family meeting. All close relatives were invited. Some came out of sympathy, others out of curiosity, hungry for gossip. Salman's humiliation at the wedding had already spread like wildfire, But what they didn't know is that a bigger storm was about to arrive. As everyone settled, I stood up with the documents in hand. My voice echoed through the room. Last night, Salman demanded property and tried to blackmail my family. But the truth goes even deeper. He is already married. Gasps filled the room. People leaned forward, eyes wide. I held up the registry papers for all to see. This is his marriage certificate with a woman named Zara. He tried to trap my sister while hiding this. He wanted wealth, not love. He wanted status, not commitment. The crowd erupted. Some relatives shouted in disgust. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Aisha sat silently, her hands gripping her dupatta so tightly her knuckles turned white. My father looked at me with both pride and sorrow. But just as the murmurs grew louder, another shocking twist came. One of our distant relatives stood up nervously and said, "There's more you should know. Zara is not just his wife. She is also pregnant with his child." The room exploded in chaos. Some women screamed, others muttered Astaghfirullah. Aisha's body shook violently, and I rushed to hold her before she collapsed again. The betrayal was too much to bear, yet the truth needed to be exposed. That night, my father made a decision. We will not stay silent. We will take this to court. Salman must answer for his deception. The next few weeks turned into a battlefield. We filed a legal case against Salman for fraud and emotional damage. At first, his family tried to intimidate us with threats, but when the evidence of his secret marriage and Zara's pregnancy came to light, their confidence crumbled. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing. Journalists, relatives, and neighbors filled the seats, eager to witness the scandal. Salman walked in, pale and furious, his eyes darting around like a cornered animal. Zara wasn't with him. Perhaps she had finally realized she was just another pawn in his games. When it was my turn to testify, I stood tall and steady. My voice rang clear as I revealed every detail: the property demands, the forged agreements, the humiliation at the wedding, and the shocking discovery of his secret marriage. I presented the documents as evidence. The judge's eyes narrowed as he examined the papers. Finally, he looked at Salman and said, "You are guilty of fraud, deception, and moral corruption. Your actions are disgraceful, and you have brought shame upon yourself and your family." The verdict was clear. Salman was sentenced to prison for fraud and financial extortion. His reputation was destroyed, his family humiliated. People who once admired him now crossed the street to avoid him. But even with justice served, the scars remained. Aisha struggled for months, battling depression and shame. Relatives whispered behind her back, though none dared to say anything to her face. Yet slowly, with time, she began to heal. One day, as we sat on the terrace watching the sunset, she looked at me with tired but determined eyes. "I may have lost a wedding, but I didn't lose myself. You saved me from a lifetime of pain." I hugged her tightly, tears rolling down my cheeks. "No, Aisha, you saved yourself. You were brave enough to say no when it mattered most." Months later, Aisha decided to continue her studies and build her own career. She no longer wanted to rush into marriage. She wanted independence, strength, and freedom. And I supported her every step of the way. Our family, though wounded, grew stronger together. We learned a painful lesson that sometimes betrayal is not the end, but the beginning of self-discovery. That losing something fake can open the door to something real. And as I watched Aisha walk confidently into her new life, I knew one thing for certain: Salman had tried to destroy us, but in the end, he only destroyed himself. Because when truth finally comes to light, lies cannot survive.